The following video was created through the collaboration of various municipalities and organizations to inform the viewer of the noxious weed leafy spurge. Each collaborator brings their experiences when managing for leafy spurge and provides their unique perspectives as to why they believe it is important to manage.
So leafy spurge is a really easy to identify plant. It has these really interesting looking greenish yellow flowers and very long linear shaped leaves. The plant is a perennial and it reproduces by both seed production as well as underground creeping roots. And some of those creeping rooted perennial species can be the most challenging to control because you have to not only remove the seed production, but also kill the underground roots as well. Now that's why it's so important that we utilize an integrated pest management approach when it comes to controlling plants like leafy spurge. We need to use lots of different types of control methods, and we need to use them at different times in the plant's life cycle.
Invasive species like leafy spurge tend to move via transportation corridors. Waterways tend to be where we have the most trouble getting ahead of invasive plant species control. By implementing an integrated pest management program, where cultural control methods like encouraging competitive plant stands and chemical control methods like using herbicides, combined with mechanical control methods like mowing or handpicking, and a biological control method like livestock grazing or insect releases, landowners and managers have a better chance to stop invasive plant species from negatively impacting their property and their neighbor's property.
What we're trying to do is stress this root system enough where our natural plants and grasses can then come in and outcompete this plant. We're hearing from a lot of our members and land occupants on the reserve. We're losing a lot of our traditional sites to pick sweetgrass, sage, and it's something that's very important to our people.
We really try to help those that are really active, proactive in controlling their leafy spurge issues.
In the county of Newell, we're quite lucky when it comes to leafy spurge. We only have a few small patches. Being that eradication is probable, we elevated it through local bylaw from a noxious weed to prohibited noxious weed, which means that landowners are responsible to destroy leafy spurge that's on their land.
A lot of people don't know what a problem leafy spurge can be. It's been here for quite a while and it's in environmentally sensitive areas, so it limits our tools in our toolbox.
A leafy spurge is a weed the county's been battling for over 30 years, primarily in the river valleys. And the county is now using biocontrol agents in these areas. And when we stopped spraying, we noticed less spurge densities in some of the areas where there were biocontrol agents, so they were being effective.
A really good site for the use of biocontrol is a large site. So you want to have a lot of leafy spurge. We kind of use the rule of thumb that you want to have about 20 meters by 20 meters. And you also want to make sure you've got good sun exposure, you've got protection from wind, and that you're above the high water mark, because flooding can have a negative impact on these critters.
And leafy spurge was something that we really didn't see any evidence of until, I would say, maybe a decade ago. We initially started spraying, it continued to get worse, and we started dabbling in the biological controls, specifically the flea beetles.
So these leafy spurge beetles, as adults, they feed on the leaves of the leafy spurge plant. So that causes damage to the plant. Then they mate and lay eggs on the soil surface. Those eggs develop into larvae, and the larvae are in the roots of the leafy spurge plant, and that's where they do the real damage.
If you're in an area and you're trying to find out, have the biocontrols been active? So you can look for that typical damage on the foliage here, and then on the stem there'll be discoloration.
If the populations are growing and establishing, in about 3 to 5 years you can sometimes have enough leafy spurge beetles where you can start relocating them to other areas.
They don't move very much, and that's why we developed this program where we had leafy spurge beetle days, where the farmers came and they were given these little cloth bags, and there were people out there sweeping the plants with nets and collecting as many adult beetles as possible for the farmers to take back to their land, because some insects are just a natural at spreading.
And this is what sweeping the leafy spurge looks like. And if you have a look in your net after about 5 sweeps and you see a few beetles in there, you know that you've got beetles established. They're hard to spot on the plants because they're so tiny. A nice sunny day between mid-June and mid-July is a perfect time to look for leafy spurge beetles.
When they run out of food, the insect numbers go down accordingly. The insect is just really faithful to its host. And they certainly don't make big leaps onto things that aren't related to to the weed.
So again, releasing leafy spurge beetles for use as a biocontrol agent is one of the tools we have in the toolbox for controlling invasive plants like leafy spurge. But we do recommend using lots of different control methods because it's a really tricky plant to actually effectively control.
This is one of our targeted grazing sites where we use goats. Robert Fink, the owner of Creekside Goats, has his goats trained to specifically go after leafy spurge. So they'll actively target this plant before they go after anything else. And from past talks we've heard that these beetles will taxi on the goats. They'll jump on the fur and the goats will spread them around.
We come in mid to late June, so they're still in their first stages of flowering, and then they come in and they just eat the flower heads off. Leaving it for 4 to 6 weeks in between lets the plant kind of come back and then reflower, and we try to hit it again before they would seed out again in late August or mid-August on that second round of flowering.
And that works really well with the biocontrols because you can have those as an additional stressor on the plants, and then when the goats come through they kind of help move the bugs because the bugs are a little lazy maybe, where they just like to hang out and they might eat themselves out of food even if there is food available really close.
Goats are one of the only livestock animals that will completely destroy the seeds for leafy spurge and whatever else they're grazing. The way they chew really grinds up the seeds, and then their stomachs are really, really acidic. So it breaks down their seed coat and anything else that would make them viable.
It could take 5 to 7 or sometimes more years to see that big reduction. You can see behind us was a nurse site that we used years ago, and now there's not enough spurge here to be a nurse site, and we do have beetles present here still, but this is a huge success story.
This area used to be so heavily infested it looked like a canola field at one point. But that's what we hope to share with people, is this: there's other ways of doing things. Holistically is a better approach for us. It's just something we were raised with.
It's really good to have something that isn't relied on chemical. It's not an instant, oh, beetles have been here, they're gone. But the plants we saw today, sure, something's at them. It's got to be the beetles.
And we realize that leafy spurge is probably a long-term problem. Even if we're able to control the infestation on our property, it's upriver. We know that it's going to constantly be reintroduced. So it's important for us to jump on this now for our generation and for future generations and not have it get out of control.
I know some of the benefits we won't see, but we're not only just doing this for ourselves, we're doing this for our future members, our kids, our grandkids, in the hopes that 40, 50 years time, they won't have to worry about where can I get sweetgrass, where can I get sage.
County employs a weed inspector who can help out with your leafy spurge issues, whether it's in the river valley, and offer advice on chemical control or set you up with a biocontrol agent as well. Another great place to look for information is the Alberta Invasive Species Council website. They have some fact sheets that will tell you, how you can control them and how leafy spurge originated in the county and other areas as well.
The Alberta Invasive Species Council offers biocontrol agents for leafy spurge, for spotted and diffuse knapweed, for Russian knapweed, and for Dalmatian toadflax. So if you're interested in acquiring any agents for any of those species, please get in touch with us. You can find all of our information on our website, which is abinvasives.ca.